Welcome to this explainer on ethical point. Look, today we're unpacking one of the most agonizing, high-stakes case studies you're ever going to encounter in the UPSC Civil Services main exam, specifically GS Paper 4. We're talking about the ultimate clash, duty versus devotion. I'll be your mentor today, guiding you through the administrative frameworks.
And I'll be jumping in as the student. I'm going to play the skeptic, making sure we keep our eyes locked on how to actually structure these concepts for a top-scoring mains answer. Because, hey, it's one thing to feel the emotion of a crisis, right? But it's a whole different ballgame to write a 250-word, 20-mark response that proves you've got the true temperament of a future civil servant.
So, to do that, let's lay out our roadmap. Section 1, the crisis at hand. Section 2, mapping the stakeholders. Section 3, the core ethical dilemmas. Section 4, evaluating Vijay's options. Section 5, the best course of action. And finally, Section 6, ace the mains exam. All right, Section 1, the crisis at hand, a district underwater and a family in mourning. Let's set the facts straight. Our protagonist, Vijay, is the deputy commissioner of a remote district in a hilly northern state. He's been posted there for 2 years. But it's August, and a catastrophic cloudburst has hit. And the scale is just terrifying. We're talking 200 confirmed dead in the upper reaches so far, plus over 5,000 injured. The road network's gone. Telecommunications totally disrupted. Honestly, Vijay's physical presence is literally the only thing standing between order and absolute chaos. He is the undisputed linchpin of the disaster response. But then, the timing delivers an agonizing blow. The heavy rains resume, right as his phone is flooded with desperate messages. His hometown is begging him to return to perform his mother's last rites.
Yeah, it's a massive emotional gut punch. His mother, who was seriously sick, has passed away in Kerala. He's her only son. His only other close relative is an elder sister living all the way in the US. So how does a commanding officer even begin to process this?
Exactly. Which brings us to Section 2, mapping the stakeholders, the unseen web of competing interests. Okay, in any GS Paper 4 answer, you absolutely must break down the players systematically. We've got 6 primary stakeholders here, and their interests are completely at odds. First, there's Vijay himself, totally torn between professional duty and personal grief. Second, the local population. They desperately need shelter and medical care. Third, his relief teams, the district administration, who need his continuous, decisive leadership just to stay motivated.
Right. But pulling in the exact opposite direction are the 4th and 5th stakeholders. You have his deceased mother and extended family in Kerala, who seek dignity in death through traditional rituals, then his sister in the US, who desperately needs emotional closure, and finally, the state government. Their primary interest, making sure there is absolutely no administrative vacuum in a disaster zone. The tension here is just immense.
Which leads perfectly into Section 3, the core ethical dilemmas, where philosophy meets public service. The absolutely crucial point here is to define the core conflict right out of the gate. This is the eternal clash, professional duty versus personal duty. On one hand, you have public interest and fiduciary responsibility. That's his legal and ethical obligation to protect the masses because he holds a position of immense public trust. On the other hand, filial piety, his profound personal moral obligation to honor his parents as a son. Guys, that is a massive tip for your exam. Always define the core conflict first in your intro. Explicitly state that this is a classic conflict between public service and personal conscience. Okay, mentor, let's break down the philosophical theories driving both sides. Let's start with utilitarianism. For a quick layman's definition, this theory looks purely at the results. It simply asks, which action brings the greatest good to the greatest number of people?
Got it. So applying utilitarianism to our case study, this framework absolutely demands that Vijay stay in the district. His presence coordinates rescue teams, saving hundreds, maybe thousands of vulnerable citizens. If he leaves to perform a funeral for one person, even his mother, he risks a total breakdown in relief efforts. That causes massive suffering for the majority.
Exactly. But let's look at the flip side, deontological ethics. Think of philosophers like Immanuel Kant here. In simple terms, deontology argues that certain actions are fundamentally right or wrong based on absolute moral duties, completely ignoring the consequences.
Right. So under deontology, Vijay has an unconditional moral duty as a son to honor his deceased mother. A deontologist would argue that filial duty is a categorical imperative. That's a fancy term for an absolute unbreakable moral law. Basically, he must go to Kerala, regardless of the fallout in the district, because honoring a parent is non-negotiable.
And this conflict gets even more complicated by the social contract. This is the implicit agreement between the state and the citizen. When Vijay accepted the post of deputy commissioner, he made a promise, a contract, to protect these specific citizens in times of crisis, which raises a truly agonizing question, doesn't it? Does an administrator's professional oath to the public override the ancient, unbreakable blood bond they have with their own family? Does the social contract cancel out the family contract? Well, to navigate that, an administrator needs immense emotional intelligence, or EI. It's not just about being book smart. It's about understanding and managing your own emotions effectively under severe stress.
And this is a massive friction point for Vijay. Just think about it. He has to practice extreme self-management, bottling up or compartmentalizing his own intense, crippling grief. Meanwhile, he's simultaneously practicing social management. He has to exude calm, decisive leadership to keep his team's morale from totally collapsing. That is an incredibly heavy psychological burden.
It really is. Let's move to Section 4, Evaluating Vijay's Options. The pros and cons of impossible choices.
Okay, pro tip. When structuring a 20-mark answer, using a matrix saves you so much time and space. Let's logically test Vijay's paths. Option 1, he leaves immediately. Pro, mental peace and he fulfills his duty as a son. Con, absolute dereliction of duty. His absence could literally cost lives. Option 2, he stays in the district. Pro, he saves lives and maintains team morale. Con, he suffers lifelong guilt and severe emotional burnout because he denied himself that necessary closure. Option 3, he tries a middle path, maybe traveling back for just a day or two. Pro, it attempts to balance both. Con, it's logistically impossible. Heavy rains have resumed, he could easily get stranded in transit, failing both his district and his family. Which leaves option 4, performing the rites remotely. Pro, it minimizes his physical absence. Con, distracted leadership is incredibly dangerous. He might not be fully focused on either the funeral or the relief work.
So, Section 5, the best course of action, finding the modified middle path.
So, we've basically torn down every single option. They all have devastating consequences. What actually scores the highest marks and realistically resolves this dilemma? The solution is what we call a modified middle path. Vijay cannot simply abandon his post, but he also can't pretend he isn't human. The ideal solution? High-level delegation to a crisis core team, combined with a temporary, strategic withdrawal to perform the last rites remotely.
Ah, I see. So true leadership here isn't about doing everything yourself. It's about building a robust second line of command. That way, the administrative machinery doesn't just fail if you have to step back for a few hours.
Spot on. And the justifications for this are crystal clear. First, it gives primacy to the public interest and his social contract. Second, it demonstrates institutional integrity. Vijay formalizes a core team, like the additional deputy commissioner, the superintendent of police, and the chief medical officer, giving them clear, actionable directives.
Right. And justification number 3 is a fantastic phrase to drop in your exam. Preservation of life is the administrator's supreme dharma. But I really love points 4 and 5 too. By stepping away just briefly to honor his grief remotely, maybe via a local priest or a video link with his sister, Vijay prevents his own emotional stagnation. It harmonizes that supreme dharma of saving lives with the psychological necessity of acknowledging his own humanity. Plus, it shows the public that the administration is compassionate, which actually builds trust.
Exactly. Now, Section 6, ACE the mains exam, translating theory into a high-scoring answer.
Brilliantly put. So, how do we actually take everything we've just discussed and translate it to paper? Here's your 3-step structural formula. Step 1, your introduction. Look, don't waste time repeating the story. Immediately define the core ethical conflict using the terminology we learned today. Utilitarianism versus deontology, public duty versus personal conscience.
Perfect.
Step 2, the main body. Draw that matrix we discussed for evaluating the options. It proves to the examiner that you can objectively weigh pros and cons without getting bogged down in endless paragraphs of text.
And finally, step 3, the conclusion or way forward. Assert clearly that saving lives is the supreme dharma. Then propose that practical, modified middle path of delegation. You want to show the examiner that a good civil servant doesn't break under pressure, they build systems to handle it.
That really is the mark of a true administrator. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this lingering thought. If public service demands we sacrifice our humanity, who is truly serving whom?
Wow. It's such a powerful question. It reminds us that civil servants aren't machines. Balancing the weight of the social contract with the fragility of our own human bonds, that is the ultimate test of leadership.
Indeed it is. Take these frameworks, apply them to your practice answers, and remember, true empathy makes you a better leader, not a weaker one. Thanks for joining us on this explainer. Keep studying, keep questioning, and we'll see you next time on Ethical Point.